anyways, with no further ado, I am going to let Armita take it over. So thanks, Armita.
Yay! No problem, Lisa. Thank you so much. So as Lisa mentioned, my name is Armita. I'm a junior at Woodbridge. And today we're going to be talking about something that I'm really passionate about, and that's redefining failure. So before we can redefine failure, let's actually define it. So if my presentation works, oops. According to Google, failure is the state or condition of not meeting a desirable or intended objective or expectation, but may be viewed as the opposite of success. Now, that's a lot of different words coming at you, but the main thing that I want to focus on is expectation. So everybody has an expectation set for themselves. These expectations can be other people's accomplishments. So let's take a GPA example for example. So if a person in my class has accomplished like a 4.3 GPA, but I only have a 3.6 GPA, I may want to take ownership of that stat and be like, okay, that's the new expectation that I need to reach. And expectations can be both internal and external. Internal meaning that we can place them on ourselves, but more often than not, they're external, meaning that it's our parents or it's our friends or, like I said, other people's accomplishments. But the main reason why we have expectations is because we think it's going to make us happier if we reach them. So a couple years ago, you guys already saw this, but the whole expectation versus reality trend was like going around, and like I'm sure you guys remember the memes and the YouTube videos. This is one of my favorite. I actually really like the reality one because it looks like Shrek. Anyways, but when it's like an expectation that we're like expecting us to like make this like cake on the expectation side that's like detailed and beautiful and amazing, but if we don't meet that, it's suddenly designed to be bad, and it's suddenly designed to be not making us feel good anymore because we haven't reached that expectation. And so as humans, we really like to quantify things. We really like to add numbers to things to make us feel like we've reached an expectation. That's why a lot of the different standards that we set for ourselves are measurable through different stats. So here's how we measure ourselves. We measure ourselves through grades, through SAT and ACT scores, through the number of extracurriculars that we follow, not the quality, through the number of followers we have on social media, through our weight and how much work we get done. The main common theme here is that all of these different metrics are quantitative and they're not qualitative. So not one thing on this list is like, oh, like if I'm a nice person or the qualities that I have as a human being. No, they're all associated with numbers because it's the one thing that really like we can go back to and is consistent for us. But by the core of it, when we don't meet that expectation and when we don't feel good and when we feel like a failure, it actually teaches us 4 core lessons, and that's experience, knowledge, resilience, and growth. So let's start out with experience. This is one of my favorite quotes by Mark Twain, and it states, good decisions come from experience. Experience comes from making bad decisions. So I'm obviously not sitting here endorsing you guys making bad decisions, but take that with a grain of salt, meaning that we make like experiences from our failures, from making those bad decisions. And we make good decisions from the experience that we learn through our failures that we've had. And this is like one of the best things that can happen to you when you fail is that you gain first-hand experience. Now, this has been even like proven in like schools statistically, but like think about yourself. You're obviously going to be more engaged in a class that has a lot more engaging material than it's more hands-on and it's like firsthand. Whereas if you're in a lecture class, it's a little bit hard to like stay motivated and stay engaged and still wanting to like learn different things. And it's the same thing here. If we don't fail, we don't gain that firsthand experience that we need to make better decisions and good decisions in our lives. So next is knowledge. Now, there's a lot of different ways, like you can be smart, you can be book smart, you can be street smart, but what failure teaches us is being self-smart. What does that mean? So being self-smart means that you're learning and like making acquaintances with yourself and your coping mechanisms. What methods work for you if your expectation was not met and you are feeling sad. So after that experience has been made, after you've gained that firsthand experience, you're really just like making acquaintances with yourself and you're telling yourself, wow, okay, This happened. I failed. I did not meet my expectation. I've gained a firsthand experience, but now I know that I need to phone a friend after this has happened to me. That's called being self-smart. Now, this is like kind of like a random concept, but all that it really means is that you're knowing your own coping mechanisms. You're knowing yourself and you're knowing what makes you feel better. You're knowing that, okay, maybe I don't get to like talk to people right now after I fail or after my expectation is not met. Maybe I just need to like be alone and just have a good cry in my room. And that's totally fine, and that's totally normal, and that's totally subjective to you. Being self-smart doesn't have like one certain metric. Everything is subjective and relative to the person. So someone may want to be super social after they've experienced these feelings and after that experience, while others might want to like, distance themselves a little. Now, next is resilience. So resilience is basically how much stronger we get and the strength that we earn and learn after we have failed or after like something like hard has happened to us. Now, every single one of us, no matter where we're from or what we do or what grade we are in or like the circumstances that we are in right now, have had some form of hardship in our lives. And that's universal. That's called common humanity. We all have had hardships. And it doesn't matter if you compare your hardship to someone else, you know, like one of the biggest hardships for me was when I had to learn English. But for somebody else, it may be something completely different. I'm not going to compare my hardships to somebody living in a completely different circumstance than me, because that's just like an unfair comparison, right? So don't compare the hardships that you've had in your life with someone else, because you guys are two different people with two complete different life stories. And what I'm getting at is the fact that we have gone through a certain point of hardship that has made us strong. And this is a really comforting like piece of information, because if you're going through something right now, if you are struggling right now, you can think, hey, no matter how old I am, I have gone through some form of hardship before in my life, and I have gotten through that, and I will get through this too. And it just brings us the sense of confidence and self-esteem, being like, I have done this before, and I will do it again because I am capable of doing that. Next is the growth aspect. So this is kind of like the step 2, I like to call it. We have gotten firsthand experience. We've become self-smart through knowledge. We know what coping mechanisms work. And we have become resilient. We're reminding ourselves that we are resilient people. So step 2 is growth. So what do I mean by growth is that we're always maturing and we're always putting things into perspective. So this tiny, tiny little moment, this tiny hardship, this tiny failure or expectation not met, is only a small part of the rest of your life. Let's look back at the GPA analogy. If I have a 3.6 and I don't meet the 4.3, that doesn't make me any lesser than, because it's only a small portion of my entire life. I'm not going to remember that exact metric when I'm at the end of my life, you know? So it's going to be very like into perspective. And when you're in the growth stage, you're always reminding yourself that, hey, okay, I have the firsthand experience, I am learning, and I will always continue to learn, and I will always continue to take those skills that I've obtained for failure and because of failure and make good decisions as my life goes on. So I gave this presentation on campus a couple of months ago, and I think what was really missing from it was how to detach from the number itself. So first off, you have to remember that it's just a number. I know all of you guys are like rolling your eyes right now and you're like, okay, but it's a number that's going to get me into college. It's going to get me into this and this and this. And I've been there. I know what that feels like. I am living through it right now too. But you really have to just like remind yourself that this number on a piece of paper or on a transcript or anything like that has the littlest amount of significance when it comes to your like the rest of your life, right? Because high school and college and like post and everything like that, they're not like the predicament and the pre-measure of the rest of your entire life. You're in control of your own reality, and this quantitative measure is just the tiniest part of your life that doesn't take into account your personality or your character. And if you're going to make the argument that like, yeah, but it's going to get me into college. Sure, it's important for college, but colleges just don't look at one thing. They just don't look at your transcript. They look at your essays and your ideas, right? I would much rather want to get into a school that wants me for my ideas and my thoughts rather than a school that's just sees me as a two-dimensional piece of paper that has a number on it, because we're all people with personalities and characters and amazing qualities. And if you remember that it's just a number and you're separate from that number, it makes the world's difference. I know it's really hard, but it's taking those like baby steps, just like reminding yourself that like this is two-dimensional, right? I'm a three-dimensional person. Like I have feelings and I have ideas, and that's what's going to get me through in life, not a certain number that some teacher gave me in some class that I'm not even going to remember in a couple of years. Next, list things you love about yourself. We all have so many great qualities, so it's time to notice them more. I know this is really, really hard for us in the age of like self-deprecation. Like, I actually like recently like wrote like a social critique on like self-deprecating humor, and I did like a little experiment like on my like Instagram stories, and 28 out of the first Instagram story has some like different like self-deprecating joke or piece of information on it. And that's insane. We're constantly surrounded by this kind of like humor that's like belittling ourselves and has like a bunch of layers of disparagement. But it's so important to notice and list the things that we love about ourselves, even if you don't believe it. This is all about taking those tiny, tiny baby steps. So how do we do that if we don't believe these things about ourselves, which are true, by the way? And that's through affirmations. It's right there in the word. Affirmations affirms our different qualities about ourselves. So here are like a list of like 25 affirmations. Like, I am grateful for this moment. I am resilient. I am stronger than I think. I am equipped with all the tools I need to succeed. I am determined to succeed. I am growing through every experience. All these things that really affirm to us that, yes, I am resilient. I am kind. I am enough. And notice that none of these things say, I have a 4.0 GPA, or I am involved in all these different activities. They're very qualitative, and they talk about our personalities and our characters, because at the end of the day, that's the impression that we leave with ourselves and other people. And even if you don't believe in this, you gotta do the fake it till you make it, guys. Like, when I first was like trying to like go on this journey and just like really like understand like what do I like love about myself, I didn't even like use the word love. I used the word like, and I was like, maybe I like that I'm a kind person, or maybe I like this. And it's those little things that like maybe you get rid of the word maybe in your sentence, and maybe like changes to love. And even if you don't believe what you're saying, like write it down on like a post-it note, in a journal, in a notebook, anywhere. Just like every morning or every night before you go to bed, just like write, I am kind, I am enough. And you can do whatever you want with that piece of paper. You can throw it away, you can keep it, you can frame it, whatever you want to do, right? You can even like do whatever you need to do to really just like make yourself believe that this is who you are, because you are this, you are kind, you are enough, you are blessed, you do have amazing worth. And even if you want to like yell it at the top of your lungs without disturbing people, or like if you want to just whisper it or just like think about it at first, that's all great too. It's all about the tiny little baby steps that you make in your like daily life that really like makes yourself detach from the number, because you're not like going over in your head like, oh, I don't have a 4.0 GPA. You're being like, I am resilient. I am strong. I am kind. I am enough. And one of the best exercises that you can do is just like, a lot of the times in the middle of the night, I can be like, oh, like I did horrible on that test. If you notice yourself like doing that, say something nice about yourself right afterward. Be like, I didn't do as well as I wanted to do on that test, but I am resilient, but I am still enough, but I still have worth. And so these affirmations, like you guys like can like Google them, like they're right here if you want to just like look at them, like write them down really quickly, or like they're even like on Pinterest. I love to pin things. So definitely use affirmations to your advantage. Next, it's practicing self-compassion. So self-compassion can be a whole topic on its own, but what it essentially is, it's being kind and compassionate towards yourself in times of failure. Now, really like when you're practicing self-compassion and when you're thinking of it, think about the fact that you're like wrapping around this cozy little blanket around yourself and you're taking care of yourself. So one of the big things that we talk about in YAT is to treat yourself as you would treat a good friend. So what does that mean? If your friend comes to you and they're like, oh, I'm so stupid, I did horrible on that test, you're not gonna be like, yeah, you are stupid, you did do horrible on that test, like what are you doing? You're not gonna say that. You're gonna be like, hey, it's gonna be okay, you're gonna get through this. And what's really important is to use that same kind of language towards yourself. Like I mentioned before, if you're thinking that like what am I doing here? I'm stupid, I'm not good enough as anybody else here. Like think of yourself as your friend and be like, no, you're not. You are enough. You are good. You are deserving to be in this position right here, right now. And a big part of self-compassion is self-care. So there's a lot of different types of self-care. First of all, there's physical, like sleeping enough. We all need to sleep more, guys. Okay, side tangent. You need to stretch or like walk or like doing any kind of like exercises, putting like good food into your body, doing yoga or resting or anything like physically that like lets yourself just be able to do the other things you want to do in your life, right? So if you're so stressed out to the point where like you're getting sick all the time, you have like sinus infections or like anything like that, like you really need to do a reset on the physical self-care and sleep your 8 to 10 hours. This is the perfect time to like get our sleep in. Next is emotional self-care. So that's stress management, emotional maturity, forgiveness, compassion, kindness. And stress management is the biggest part, right? So I'm going to do a little side story thing of my own life. So my freshman year of high school, I was so determined. I was like, I'm going to be in every single AP class. I'm going to do every single honors thing. I'm going to do so many different like extracurriculars. And I was stressed out to the max. And because I was so stressed out, I was like losing my appetite. I was like losing weight. And it was just, I was not sleeping at all. I wasn't like taking care of myself. And so the stress had like manifested itself into like me physically not being able to like go to school. And I was just like so like not in the like the best headspace. And so the year afterwards, I kind of had to like pull myself back and be like, yeah, like going to college and things like that is important, but like I want to be able to like have fun. I want to be able to like physically get up and go to class, and I don't want to be sick all the time anymore. So I lessened those APs and I did extracurriculars that I was like truly only passionate about. So it's little things like that that like making those conscious choices that are really going to like be helpful. Now I know it's like really hard being in like this like urbane state of like APs, honors, whatever it is. But what's really important is to realize that this is only 4 years of your life, right? Your health is long-term. Your health is like your body that you live in right now. It's all like for the rest of your life, right? You don't want to wreck it like when you're just like 15 to like 18, right? You want to take care of yourself. And stress is a really big part of it that bleeds into like physical manifestations. Next is social self-care. That's like setting social boundaries and like having a support system and providing a positive social media, having communication, asking time together with your family or friends, and asking for help. So when we're talking about social media, through social media self-care, you have the power to curate your social media feed to be whatever you want it to be, right? So why not follow like really positive people or really inspiring people, like make it a positive headspace. Because for a lot of people and for myself, social media can be really negative, like the constant comparison and the constant needing to be like proving yourself that like I'm doing things with my life, or like the constant stories and things like that. And at one point, again, like during like the end of my freshman year, I was just so over it. I was like, I'm so tired of this. So I actually took a break from social media for a year. And it was one of the best things that I've done because it really just like cleared my headspace and just like changed my relationship with social media. Now, if you want to, you don't have to do it for a year. I'm just like kind of intense, so I just did it for a year. But like maybe it's for 2 hours, maybe it's for a week. Do whatever it is that you need to do to have different, like take care of yourself through your social media. So it can be a week, it can be a month, it can be a day, it can be 30 minutes. Like the app is always going to be there. The pictures are always going to be there. The videos are always going to be there. But like your stress and your mental health is right here, right now. and the relationship you have to social media is really, really important. So do whatever you need to do to make it like a positive headspace. And don't be afraid to like unfollow people. I know it's like a touchy subject, but like they can't really tell, right? So just like if somebody is just like, okay, this person is just like not adding like value to my life and that's kind of toxic, I keep comparing myself to them, it's okay to unfollow. So next, it's spiritual self-care. This is completely subjective to everyone and anything you want it to be. It can be journaling. It can be like meditation, religion, having a sacred space. It can even just like be like a time of day where you just like breathe, right? Like I was crazy. I used to like schedule out my like mental breakdowns, be like a Friday at like 5 p.m. Like I'm just gonna have like an hour where I just like let myself like release all my emotions, and that can be a form of self-care too. So we got to talk about the coronavirus for this one because we're in a really different time, and failure looks a lot different than what we have seen it before we all got into quarantine and the lockdown. So first of all, cut yourself some slack. Online learning, you guys, is hard and you're allowed to feel confused. Like, I'm going to be completely transparent. My grades don't look like the same that they did before quarantine because online learning is harder. It's harder for us. It's harder for teachers. And so don't place that same expectations on yourself because like you're like isolated and you're doing everything online. As great as like WebEx and like Zoom is, learning is hard online, and teaching all these complicated subjects to yourself is pretty hard. So it's okay to feel confused. It's okay to feel frustrated. Let yourself accept that feeling and be like, okay, this is the new normal that I have to get adjusted to because this is harder than I thought it was going to be. But then again, we go back to the whole resilience thing. Yes, this is hard right now, and I'm cutting myself some slack, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to be able to go through it. So next, it's okay not to be okay. In these troubling times, don't feel like you need to accomplish some groundbreaking thing. Take some time to cope. So don't feel like you have to write the best-selling novel. Don't feel like you have to like cure whatever you want to cure, or like don't put this expectation on yourself again to like do something huge because you have all this like time on your hands. No, it's okay not to be okay. It's okay if you want to write the best-selling novel or if you want to like sit in your room and watch Netflix all day. That's totally fine. All that matters is that you accept yourself and you allow yourself to cope in the ways that work for you. And that goes back to being self-smart. So next, it's limiting social media time. Notice that I didn't say like take social media time away because social media is really honestly keeping a lot of people sane right now. Like we need that social connection with our friends and our other family members. And so just make sure like you're allowing yourself to like reach out to friends and FaceTime and like DM and do whatever it needs to do to like catch up with friends and family. But it's easy to compare yourself to other people's highlight reel. So I've been like seeing a lot of like different like day in my life quarantine edition. I'm gonna wake up at 6 a.m. and then I'm gonna like have a healthy breakfast, and then I'm gonna go work out, and then I'm gonna like write 10 pages of my novel. Like it doesn't have to be like that. That's person's highlight reel. And if our version of like what our quarantine looks like isn't the same as theirs, that doesn't mean it's bad or it's worse. It's just relative. That person's highlight reel is just like 30 seconds to a minute, like however minutes that they choose to include and put it online. We don't get to see the entire 24-hour picture because I guarantee you every single one of us is in the same boat right now and we're going through the same exact thing. And just because a person is like posting that, oh, like quarantine is going so well and they're having that glow up or whatever it is that they're doing, doesn't mean that they're still not hurting or they're still not having like breakdowns or need some time to like cope. So the next thing you need to do, or like you should do, is do things that make you happy. Engage in activities that don't entail you to prove yourself to anyone. So a lot of us, I've noticed, is that when we do things and we have like certain hobbies, we strive to be the very best of the best in those activities that we do, right? And that was me like with like piano. I was like, I'm going to be like the best piano player. But like, just take a step back and be like, okay, why am I playing piano? Because I want it to make me feel happy, because music makes me feel happy. Once you let go of the fact that I don't need to like prove myself to anyone, like I can't physically prove myself to anyone, like I can't go outside, I can't have like an audience like listen to me play. And like just like don't try do activities that like don't entail you to prove yourself to anybody, because having those like activities that are like sacred to you and you only is just very comforting, and being like, okay, this is my time where I can just like be myself and I can express myself. Maybe that's reading, maybe that's playing games, maybe that's like playing Just Dance or whatever it is, or video games. It doesn't mean you have to be the very, very best at it, because ultimately you're doing it to make yourself happy, and the sole act of doing it should be enough. So I have a couple of things that I want to leave you guys with. The first is, you're not a number, you are not a grade, and you are not your expectation not met. These like 3 things are my like mantras of life all the time, because even if I don't believe it that day, or even if I do believe it that day, it's super, super, super important for me to like stay reminded of it, because you are not a number, you are not a grade, you are not your expectation not met. You're a person with feelings and a personality and character, and at the end of the day, you're not going to remember that grade you got in that class. You're going to remember the friends that you've made and the memories that you've created, and you're going to be like, yeah, like I was nice to that person, or I did make a new friend in that class. And so just keep in mind that this tiny little setback that may not seem tiny at the moment is a really small snippet of your entire life. And don't be scared to try new things. As I mentioned before, failure teaches us those 4 important lessons of experience, knowledge, growth, and resilience. So keep that in mind with yourself. Thank you guys so much for listening to my presentation. I'm like really, really, really passionate about it. And it was really, really fun talking to you guys, even though you guys couldn't talk. But please just remind yourself that you're more than a number. Okay, so this Thursday, on April 16th at 4 p.m. on WebEx, we are going to be having another forum, and it's going to be developing a lifestyle of leadership. And the speaker that's speaking at it was actually speaking at Super Saturday. Correct me if I'm wrong, Lisa. But yeah, he was speaking at Super Saturday, which was a volunteer event that some of you may have been like signed up at. And so it's a really cool forum. Definitely make sure you like sign up on it. Sign-ups are posted at tinyurl.com/chatfamcommunity. And it's a really, really great way to get your community service hours in right from home. And the next event that we have is every Friday. We have trivia nights, and the winner gets a $15 Amazon gift card. And you guys can RSVP on the Padlet again that I showed. And it's every Friday at 4 p.m. And you guys make sure to sign up by 1 p.m. on Friday so you guys get the link. And it's a lot of fun.